YouTube is absolutely playing me, guys. I am not kidding. They have still not allowed my video for last night to go live. So on the day that you watch this video is the same day that I've filmed it and edited it, because YouTube hates me. It hates me. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel. If you're new here, I hope you're all doing so well. Welcome back to another true crime and makeup episode. Oh yeah. We're covering the case of Derek Bentley and Christopher Craig. Now, Christopher Craig at the time of these crimes was 16 years old. Derek Bentley was 19. Derek Bentley did not commit a crime in this case, and yet he would be executed because Christopher Craig was only 16 years old. I don't want to give too much away right now on the whole story, but we're going to dive right into it. Please make sure you leave a comment down below, engage with the video in some way. It can be an emoji, it can be about the case, because I do want to know your opinions. Please also make sure, if you enjoy true crime, that you subscribe to my channel, get the notification bell on, because I upload twice a week, every single week. Details of anything used on my face, my social media handles, my case suggestions document, everything is linked in the description for you. Last night you were meant to be getting the case of Elaine O'Hara, but that has been an absolute show to get up for you, but I will try my very best to please YouTube and have them allow the case to go live. I don't know what else I can possibly do here. They restricted my Rodney Alcala video so bad. Restricted it, unrestricted it, restricted it again, and the analytics showed that it was not getting pushed out. It wasn't coming up on recommended, suggested, nothing. So I really need your help on this case. Please. But without any further rambling or any further ado, let's get into the case of Derek Bentley and Christopher Craig. I just need to maybe down a wee bit. Oh, that's maybe too far. It's not too far. That's alright. No joke. On the day that I'm filming this video is the same day that you're going to see this video. This video should actually be the case of Elaine O'Hara, but YouTube does not want to approve that video, making me late with the upload and covering a completely different case. So, lucky I had one in the back burner that needed to be filmed at some point, so I guess today is that day. Derek Bentley, really sad case, another miscarriage of justice, which we are just seeing far too often. I personally really love talking about these cases because, I don't know, I feel like they kind of get looked over. People talk about mass killers, like serial killers, etc, but I don't really see a lot of coverage on miscarriages of justice, which I'm so interested in. The two that I would recommend you watch is Willie Francis and George Stinney. I've covered them on my channel ages ago, and these sort of cases I'm just so passionate about. But I want to know, do you think Derek Bentley should have been executed, or do you think he should have been let go? I want to know. Thoughts, feelings, opinions, theories down below. Also, YouTube playing with me the way it did on a Sunday, and a Sunday when I was hungover, no less. Not cool. Not the vibe. I rarely drink, ever, like twice a year if I'm lucky, so when I drink, I don't need no shenanigans going on. Derek William Bentley, he was born on the 30th of June 1933, and he was born in Southwark, London. Is it Southwark? Southwark? It's South something. I'm not sure what one it is, but he was born there, and that is in England, of course. Fun fact, I used to think when I was younger that London and England were like separate countries. Yeah, geography, it's not my thing. And I have to say, for Derek Bentley, his upbringing and his childhood, it wouldn't be easy at all. I mean, he knew loss and grief from such a young age, losing many family members, family friends. His young life was just plagued by loss, along with the loss of many relatives and family friends at a young age. His family and household in itself, they faced a lot of hardship, especially during World War II. Now, there was actually 3 occasions when Derek Bentley and his family would be bombed out of their house. And in Scotland, we would say you've been bombed out as in you've been kicked out. No, he was literally bombed out of his house, like bombed out his house. Really bad stuff. And at one point, his house collapsed with him inside of it. Somehow he was like able to escape and get free from it, but for months and even years after, he suffered from consistent nightmares. Understandably so, like the mental trauma that would inflict, but to be bombed out of your house as well. What? Like, where do you go back then? An air raid shelter? Like, I don't know. Also, just to quickly jump in for a second, I get asked a lot on these videos, like what makeup brushes I use. Today I'm using the Made by Mitchell brushes alongside the Real Techniques brushes. Both of them are like the mini travel size. I bought them for going on holiday and have used them ever since. I do also have an Hourglass brush and a few Temu brushes that I'm using, so I'll link them all down below, but if I forget, because I mean, hello, it's me, just let me know. So like I've said, Derek, he has suffered a lot. His family have suffered a lot. But the higher powers that be, or at be, how would you say that? I don't know. But, you know, whoever's up there pulling the strings, he decided, or she decided, or they decided that Derek Bentley had not suffered enough. So, Derek Bentley would not only be plagued by loss and trauma as a child, he would also be plagued by illness. He just had many health troubles, and at one point when he was a little boy, he got in like a childhood accident, and this accident resulted in him breaking his nose pretty bad, to be honest. And after this broken nose dilemma, he then started having consistent reoccurrent seizures, really serious seizures. At one point, he nearly died during a seizure due to choking. He was choking on his own tongue. And of course, with these seizures happening so frequently, Derek's family, they were terrified that they might end up losing him to one of these seizures one day. I mean, especially when he is choking on his own tongue, like what if no one was there to help him? They were extremely worried, so they took David to get loads of testing done, and it would take quite a long time, but Derek, he would eventually be diagnosed with epilepsy. Correct me if I'm wrong, but did I just call that guy David? Who's David? Derek, Anna. Derek. Despite all the trauma that Derek had faced and all the hard times that he went through, and of course his really troubling health issues, he was still known to be really positive, very upbeat, he was really cheerful, he was friendly to everyone else. Like, it seemed as though in his social life, his trauma and health didn't really get to him. However, through his schoolwork, his educational journey, this seemed to be where his health issues really came into play, and he would really struggle with anything intellectual. So 1944 rolls right around, and Derek, he would fail to pass the 11 plus examinations. Like, it was a complete fail. He really struggled. Now, because of this, he would go on to attend Norbury Manor Secondary Modern School. Whilst he was here, his academic performance was deemed to be functioning like a feeble-minded 11-year-old. Why are we still here with the hands? I don't know, but a feeble-minded 11-year-old. Aren't we all a bit feeble-minded at 11? Like, what do you want, Albert Einstein? Now, someone who would also be attending the school at the same time as Derek was none other than Christopher Craig. Now, Christopher Craig, he was born on November the 2nd of 1936. Why am I like trying to hide? Like, why am I down here? Stay up. But yeah, Christopher, born on November the 2nd, 1936. He was born in Croydon of England, so like not overly far away from Derek Bentley. Now, Christopher, it is said that he also had a very challenging and difficult childhood and upbringing. Due to the sort of ways that his home life was, he would go on to be very rebellious from such a young age. And I don't even mean just like rebellious at home. He was rebellious at school, he was rebellious outside. His teachers and fellow pupils just couldn't really get a break from him. He was just a bit wild. With Christopher, from a very young age, like I cannot stress it enough, he became obsessed with all kinds of guns and firearms, and it is said that his obsession just grew and grew so much that by the age of just 16 years old, literally like a young boy, 16 years old, he had amassed a collection of 40 guns, 40 different firearms. Where's he getting them? How is he getting them? Who's given them to him? I don't know, but it seems wrong. Christopher Craig did say that like his obsession with firearms, guns, whatever, this was due to the fact that he wanted to become a gunsmith. Like, this was his aspiration in life. He was really passionate about guns. So I mean, that makes it a bit less scary because it sounds like he wants to have a career in that area, but you know, age of 16, 40 guns, I'm a little bit worried for him and others. And also with Christopher's rebellious streak, he was no stranger to the police. From a very young age, he was getting involved in like minor burglaries and like minor theft crimes. So yeah, he was well known to the police. He had been arrested on several different occasions, and he had been arrested on several different occasions. So, you know, that rebellious streak, he's really living up to it. Now, just before leaving the modern school in 1948, Derek Bentley, he would be arrested alongside another young boy for another theft crime, okay? He was always sort of getting into these minor burglaries and robberies, a bit like Christopher Craig, to be absolutely honest. And just 6 months later, he would be sentenced to serve a 3-year sentence at Kingswood Approved School. Now, this was near Bristol. And I'm sure you can imagine this approved school, it was a reformatory school. It was an alternative to, you know, young offenders being sent to an adult prison. Now, the woman who was sort of running the school, she believed that this school should be based on the love of a child rather than the punishment of a child. So recreation and sport, that should all be widely accessible to the young offenders within the school. And she believed that any sort of corporal punishment should be kept to the bare minimum, because she believed that young offenders, young boys, young girls, whoever, they're not going to learn from being treated badly. They're going to learn in a loving environment. Now, whilst they were at this school, the young boys, they would receive education in sort of like farm work or industrial work, something to have under their belts for when they go back out into the real world, so they are equipped with knowledge and skill that, you know, would be good for a job. And listen, I'll be honest, right? Sounds like they've opened up with good intentions, but there are some stories from that school that don't sound too great, from mistreatment of some of the young offenders there by the teachers, the headmasters, people just not doing their job correctly and being very nasty, which was apparently what the school was against, but I guess you can't always get the staff. So Derek, he would be sent to this Kingswood training school on October the 27th of 1948. Whilst he attended this school, they would administer like a range of tests on Derek. And these test results, they would identify a wide range of developmental issues that Derek had. And these were issues that he hadn't previously been aware of. He knew that he struggled academically, but he could never really understand why. And I guess at this point in time, unless these tests are administered, you're not really going to know. So when Derek was just 15 and a half years old, one of these tests that had been administered did identify that Derek had a mental age of a 10-year-old. Alongside his low mental age, he also had a very low IQ of 66. Now, an IQ of 66, this is considered to be extremely low intelligence and below average cognitive abilities, as well as a potential intellectual disability. So there was a lot going on for Derek. There was a lot of reasons why he may have been struggling academically, because mental age of a 10-year-old, IQ of 66. It's no big surprise that he struggles. So of course, with this low IQ of 66, Derek struggled with problem solving, he really struggled with abstract thinking, critical decision making, he struggled socially, like social interactions didn't come easy to him at all. And this would leave him struggling with his daily life, his professional life, his academic life, like his education. Every aspect of Derek's life seemed to be affected by the cognitive disabilities that were identified. And I have to say, with the things I read about Derek's early life, his early education, even his education at Kingswood, it just seemed like people did not understand him. They didn't understand why he was the way he was sometimes, even once these tests were done and his cognitive disabilities identified. They still couldn't see past the fact that may cause his behaviour to be a bit different. And just to back up what I've said there, the staff at Kingswood, they had called him lazy, indifferent, voluble and of the wise guy type. Now the court, they had also described him as being smug, indifferent, self-satisfied and ready to tell tales. And honestly, like, the absolute slander of this young boy just because he has different needs and just because he might act differently is actually, like, insane. This young 15-year-old is struggling. They've got cognitive disabilities and they're just being read for filth by the school and the court. They would even refer to him as being completely illiterate, and the reason for this was because he could not read, recognise or write all the letters of the alphabet. Like, he really, really struggled. He just didn't know some of them. So Derek, he would receive 2 examinations by EEG, and just in case you're not aware, this is a method to record an electrogram, which basically identifies any sort of spontaneous activity in the brain. So a reading conducted on November the 19th of 1949 did identify and conclude that Derek was in fact an epileptic. A further reading would be done on February the 9th of 1950, and these results also came back abnormal. Then on July the 28th of 1950, Derek Bentley, he is released from Kingswood Training School, and he was actually released a year earlier than expected, but it was said that he would remain under their care and supervision until 1954. But Derek wouldn't be here for 1954. Once Derek was out of Kingswood Training School, he really struggled with any form of social interaction, and for the remainder of 1950 he just became a recluse, and he wouldn't really leave his house at all up until March of 1951, where he would finally start, getting out there, getting work, having social interactions through jobs. But it was a long time that he was very reclusive. March of 1951, Derek is finally able to get himself out the house. He gets himself a job within a furniture removal company. What's that, like a furniture removalist person? He removed furniture basically, and this job was something that he didn't mind doing, but it was also something he couldn't really see himself sticking to long term. He just had other goals in mind, other things that he wanted to achieve, so for him this was just a stepping stone in his career. Now unfortunately, Derek, he would suffer a really bad back injury, and this meant in 1952 he had to give up his employment completely with the furniture removal company, because the only position that he could really be seen in was doing the removals. So May of 1952, Derek goes out and he is able to get himself another job, and this is with the Croydon Corporation as a dustbin man. And again, Derek did say it wasn't his favourite job in the world, but kind of paid the bills, gave him a bit of a social life, so he couldn't really argue with that. Just 1 month later, Derek would be demoted to a street sweeper. Apparently he was underperforming in his previous job. Unsatisfactory performance whilst being a dustbin man. I don't know where he went wrong. I don't know where you can go wrong, but he did, and they weren't happy. So even after him being demoted, the Croydon Corporation, they still weren't happy with his performance. And just 1 month after the demotion, he would be sacked, and he would then struggle to get any other employment. So, how is he going to make money? How is he going to pay his bills? He was really struggling at this point. And I think this really hit Derek hard, because he kind of felt like he had no place to go. He didn't really have much potential for his future, and he would say, if I can't get a job doing that, what am I really good for? It's so upsetting to hear someone think like that. And even the way he felt about the jobs he was doing, I think he felt like he wasn't doing very much. But people need to remember, dustbin men, street sweepers, litter pickers, whoever, they keep everything moving, they keep our place clean. Could you imagine if our bins didn't get emptied? What we're going to do then? We need these people. These jobs are important. They're a very important part of society and the economy. So November the 2nd of 1952, now 16-year-old Christopher Craig, he had planned to take his girlfriend out in Croydon to see a movie. Now after they do this in the afternoon, Christopher Craig has his whole evening planned out, and unfortunately, none of these plans would be good, and they did not include his girlfriend. She went home after the movie. So later that evening, Christopher starts to get his plans in action, and he arms himself with a knuckle duster, also a sawn-off .45 Colt revolver, and a sheath knife. Now his plans for that evening, bearing in mind I said they weren't good ones, his plans were to commit an armed robbery on the local butcher shop. Now I should say at this point, Christopher Craig and Derek Bentley, they had been acquaintances. I don't think they were best friends by any means, but they had committed minor robberies and minor burglaries together. So when Derek had met up with Christopher that evening, he had armed himself with a very small knife. The two boys, they then decide to jump on the bus and head into Croydon Town Centre. Once they arrive in the Croydon Town Centre, Christopher then hands Derek Bentley his knuckle duster, so he's got like another bit of ammunition, I suppose. So the boys, they arrive at Croydon Station and they decide that they're going to walk a very short distance to 2729 Tamworth Road, and at this address is where Barlow and Parker Confectionery Warehouse stood. And this was now their target. At this point, 16-year-old Christopher and 19-year-old Derek, they begin to scale the big 6-foot iron gate. Once they're over the gate, they then climb up the drain pipe to the roof of the warehouse. Now, around 9:15 p.m, a woman by the name of Edith Ware, she's putting her young daughter to bed, and when she glances out the bedroom window, she sees the boy scaling the gate and climbing the drain pipe, and she decides to alert the police. The police, they dispatch 2 cars to the scene of the crime. So one of these cars has Detective Constable Frederick Fairfax in the vehicle, and he was accompanied by other officers, but it seems to be Fairfax is like, you know, one of the main guys in this case. The other police car was Constable Sidney Miles. When the police arrived, they had their like sirens going, their blue flashing lights, whatever. So Derek and Christopher were very aware that the police were onto them. So the pair of them, they hide behind a lift house inn and positioned themselves on the roof of the warehouse. Put foundation in my hair. So the police, they then decide that they're also going to climb up this drain pipe and head toward the roof. So Detective Constable Fairfax, he starts to, you know, scale the drain pipe, and he announces to the boys that he is a police officer and he's here. They shouldn't be here and they need to come out and just show themselves, you know, give themselves up. Now this makes Derek and Christopher panic because obviously they don't want to be arrested, they don't want to get in trouble with the police, so they're just trying to hide out. So Detective Constable Fairfax, he's still calling out to the boys, right? He's shouting over to the lift stack and he's saying to them, come out, show yourselves, like, if you give yourselves up, you won't be in any trouble, blah, blah, blah. Like, you know, trying to lure them out. Now, one of the boys, and it's believed that this would have been Christopher Craig, he's kind of like taunting Detective Constable Fairfax and he's saying, if you want us, you have to come and get us. Bro, please, just either run. If you're going to run. If you're going to give yourself up, just give yourself up. Like, it's no hide and seek. So Detective Constable Fairfax, he rushes over to the lift stack where the boys were hiding, and almost immediately he's able to apprehend Derek Bentley. Now he's trying to like pull Derek along whilst holding on to him, but to get Christopher Craig, but ultimately he failed. He wasn't able to get Christopher, but he's still got Derek at this point. So as Detective Constable Fairfax is sort of confronting Christopher Craig to give himself up, Derek Bentley, he's able to escape the grip of Fairfax. Now later, after this whole ordeal was finished, Detective Constable Fairfax said that he heard Bentley exclaim to Christopher Craig, "Let them have it, Chris." Now, this is the whole basis of why Derek Bentley is no longer here. Let them have it, Chris. Apparently, Constable Fairfax, he was confronting Christopher Craig to give himself up, but also to drop his weapon because he had the .45 Colt revolver. When this is going on, Bentley shouts, "Let them have it, Chris." Now to me, that sounds as though, let them have the gun, Chris. But to the police, they tried to say that let them have it, Chris was to open fire on the police. This is what they believe. So another officer, and that was Police Constable Harrison, he had ascended a building that was adjacent to the warehouse, and he said he also heard Bentley say, "Let them have it, Chris." Very suddenly, after Bentley had exclaimed this, Constable Fairfax, he gets a very, very sharp, blinding pain in his shoulder. Now with this shot, there was also a blinding flash that caused him to get disorientated and drop to the ground. This is when he realised Christopher Craig had shot him in his right shoulder. Now Detective Constable Fairfax, he sort of like gathers himself together very quickly, sort of recovers quickly, and he's able to tackle Derek Bentley, and this is when a second shot would be fired by Craig. So now Detective Constable Fairfax, he's hiding himself and Bentley behind a large light that's on the roof. At this point, he pats Bentley down to make sure that he doesn't have a firearm, which of course he doesn't. All he's armed with is the knuckle duster and the small knife that he didn't pull out once. He didn't try to use it, he didn't threaten anyone with it, but it was in his pocket. Now, Derek Bentley, he informed Detective Constable Fairfax that Christopher Craig, on the other hand, was armed with a sawn-off Colt .45 revolver, and he had quite a lot of ammunition on him as well. Now, of course, at this point, Detective Constable Fairfax, he is wanting to get to safety, so he drags Derek Bentley over to a staircase, and this was out of view of the lift shaft where Christopher Craig was sheltering and firing from. So at this point, Christopher Craig, he spots PC Harrison adjacent on the other roof of the building, and he fires 2 shots, both of which luckily missed. PC Harrison, he then decides that he's gonna, descend that roof, get back on the ground with the other officers. Because, patch that, being up on the roof like some nutty guy with a revolver trying to kill you. With PC Harrison back on the ground, he meets back up with Sidney Miles, the other officer, and the other ones who had come along with Fairfax. Now they decide that they're going to enter through the front door of the building and make their way to the roof via the staircase. So PC Miles, he was in front and he's the first one to, ascend the staircase and set foot onto the roof. As soon as he sets foot onto the roof, Christopher Craig notices him right away. Straight away, he opens fire. He fires a shot at PC Sidney Miles, strikes him in the head and kills him instantly. Now, Christopher Craig, as soon as he realises that he's just murdered a police officer by shooting him in the head, he's like, oh crap, I better run. Like, this is bad. So he decides to dive off the 20-foot building into a garden down below where he fractures his wrist and his spine. So, bro's going nowhere. Now, Derek Bentley, he's still with Detective Constable Fairfax. All the police rush down. Christopher Craig is then arrested. Now, bearing in mind, Christopher Craig was the one who did all the firing, okay? He was the one that fired all the shots. Derek Bentley didn't even have a gun on him. He had a knuckle duster and a small knife that he never ever brought out. But both of the men were charged with first-degree murder of the police officer, Sidney Miles. And not only that, but both of them would also be charged with the attempted murder of Detective Constable Fairfax. Yeah, and I'm sure, as you can imagine, that this whole case would go to trial. So it went to trial at the Old Bailey on December the 9th of 1952. Now, at this point was a time where legal aid was not available for defendants. Now, Christopher Craig's defence attorney, John Paris, he was called just 2 days before Christopher Craig was due to go to trial. Then Derek Bentley's defence, Frank Castles, he was also very unprepared, or ill-prepared, should we say, or just not prepared at all. Now, I have to say, throughout this trial, there was so many conflicting testimonies from the officers who were at the scene. Now, it conflicted between how many shots were fired, as well as the dialogue that was exchanged. The dialogue that is very, very important to this case. So on December the 10th, Christopher Craig, he would take the stand at the Old Bailey, and when he was asked regarding, did you shoot the police officers? Did you shoot at the police officers? He admitted that he did fire the shot that killed Sidney Miles. He did, however, say that he didn't mean to hit any of the police officers. He was just trying to scare them away. Now, when the Lord Chief Justice had asked Christopher Craig, well, how did this shot come to hit Sidney Miles and kill him? Christopher Craig had said, it may have ricocheted, I don't know. It was like a direct shot to Sidney Miles, so I don't know. Christopher Craig, he admits that he did fire the weapon 9 times. He did. He didn't mean to harm the police officers. He wanted to scare them away, but ultimately he has killed a police officer and wounded another. He also admitted that he had reloaded the weapon, and despite the police claiming to have heard Bentley say, "Let them have it, Chris," Christopher Craig stated that he did not hear Derek Bentley say that once. This is a man who is also up for first-degree murder and attempted murder, and he is still defending Derek Bentley and saying he did not say that. The one thing that the police are really riding on is Derek Bentley saying, "Let them have it, Chris." Even Christopher Craig is saying he didn't hear that. Now, of course, due to Christopher Craig only being 16 years old, he was ineligible for the death penalty. And because of this meant that the prosecution, they solely focused on 19-year-old Derek Bentley. Despite him not being the one who discharged the weapon, he didn't even use a weapon at any point on any officers, but they wanted to nail his coffin shut with this apparent phrase he said. When Derek Bentley was questioned regarding whether or not he had muttered this one phrase that apparently forced Chris to discharge his weapon, Derek Bentley asserted every single time that he did not say, "Let them have it, Chris." And also, just to confirm, the evidence clearly indicated that Derek Bentley had nothing to do with the shooting. So during the summation of the case, Lord Chief Justice Lord Goddard, that is a mouthful, he brandished Bentley's knuckle duster, showing it off to the court. He completely disregarded any evidence that pointed to Bentley being innocent. He just completely ignored it. He wanted to nail someone for this murder, and he would stop at nothing. He urged the jury to believe the police officer's testimony regarding the "Let them have it, Chris." And he even stated, "Do you believe those 3 officers have come into that witness box and sworn what is deliberately untrue?" He then said, "On that night, they showed a devotion to duty for which they are entitled to thanks to the community. You remember and realise, I know that you owe a duty to the community." Like, how is he getting to do this? What kind of judge does that? Like, they're not going to stand a chance then. After deliberating for only 75 minutes, the jury had returned a verdict that both Christopher Craig and Derek Bentley were guilty of the murder of PC Sidney Miles and the attempted murder of Constable Fairfax. Now, Derek Bentley, he received the death penalty, whereas Christopher Craig, due to his age, he did not. He was ordered to be detained at Her Majesty's pleasure. His defence team, they did lodge an appeal, but ultimately this appeal was rejected. So just shortly before 9 AM on the 28th of January 1953, the door to Derek Bentley's cell swung open. He would be offered a glass of brandy, and then he was then escorted to the execution chamber at Wandsworth Prison in London. His arms would be bound and a white linen hood was placed over his head, and then a noose was placed around his neck. Albert Pierrepoint, the executioner, he released a cotter pin, he pulled a lever, and the heavy trapdoors opened beneath Derek Bentley. Derek Bentley was hung, and he would die at the age of 19 years old. And what is so sickening is just 10 years later, Christopher Craig, the one who pulled that trigger, the one who killed that police officer and wounded another, he was released from prison to live his life. And Derek Bentley, who did not even pull out a weapon, let alone fire a gun, but apparently said one phrase, lost his life. Where is the justice in that? It doesn't exist. And of course, following Derek Bentley's execution, the community and his family were in this uproar. I mean, how is this justice served? You've just took the life of an innocent man, and a man who was only guilty of breaking and entering. Let's be real. Debates continued to unfold regarding the fairness and the humanity around capital punishment. Now, this event, it went widespread. Loads of people heard about it, and loads of people were in an uproar because of it, because they believe that he had then become a victim to a very flawed legal system. Rightly so, because yes, he had. And they were even more outraged when they learned of his age, his youth, his learning difficulties, his mental disabilities, and the circumstances surrounding the crime. Now, Derek Bentley's family, they really fought for him, and they said that he was a victim of a grave miscarriage of justice in the legal system, and I absolutely agree. Many believe, including his family, that if Derek Bentley did utter the words, "Let them have it, Chris," he was merely telling Chris to give up the gun, give the gun to the police officer, surrender your weapon, not to open fire. And that's what I believe. Now, Derek Bentley's family, they sought support and help from legislators in Parliament and the government, but ultimately they were rejected on multiple different occasions. However, in 1993, Derek Bentley, he would be granted a posthumous pardon by the Court of Appeal. They recognised that his trial and his execution had in fact been a huge miscarriage of justice, and he was in fact a victim. Now, Derek Bentley's case, this played a huge vital role in the abolishment of capital punishment in the United Kingdom in 1998. That same year, the highest court had overturned Derek Bentley's conviction. They had ruled that the judge of that trial had presented such a unfair and one-sided account to the jury that Derek Bentley did not stand a chance and he did not receive a fair trial. Derek Bentley to this very day is thought of the victim that he is to a very flawed legal system. Derek Bentley's gravestone actually says that he was a victim of injustice. So my loves, that is the end of another true crime and makeup video. I really hope you found this one interesting. Hopefully it's one that you've maybe not heard of before, or if you have, maybe not in great detail. I really want to know your thoughts, feelings and opinions down below in the comments, which also helps with the engagement, because if you didn't notice, my Rodney Alcala video, YouTube played me. They restricted it, then they unrestricted it, and then they restricted it again. And the analytics on that video showed that YouTube did not push that out at all. So thank you so much to every single one of you who watched that video and commented and supported. That truly means everything to me, because YouTube, they're just not playing fair these days. It's really unfair. But please remember, if you're interested in anything used on my face today, it will all be linked down below in the description. My social media handles will also be there as well, my Instagram, my TikTok. If you want to give me a little follow, that would be amazing, because I am going to be posting a lot through the festive period. Also, please tell me when it's appropriate to get the Christmas decks up, because I want it to be Christmas up in here. Any case suggestions you have, they can be left down below in the comments, or you can put them on my Google Doc, which is linked in the description. But please remember, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you do. Get the notification bell on so you're notified every time I upload, which is twice a week, every single week. But that is it for today's case. Please remember, be a good person, do not be a bad person, stay safe, look after each other, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!